All right, readers. Those clocks there striking 13, so let us begin. All right, this week we are looking at Alex Garland's novel, The Beach. Now, I'm not really sure how popular this novel is, but it's held a special place in my heart for like 15 years now. And I just read the book a month back, maybe 2 months back at most. Now you may be asking yourselves, how can a book that you had never read hold a special place in your heart? Well, that magical land of Hollywood brought us the movie based on the book, aptly called The Beach. Who figured they used the same title? But The Beach was one of those movies that just struck a chord with me. It was one of those movies that was perfect for me. And I say for me because I feel like I am the only fan of this movie in the world. Everybody just dogs the movie The Beach. They hate it. They just make fun of it. Mainly because it stars Leonardo DiCaprio. Now I know what you're thinking. Why would anybody make fun of a Leo movie? Well, there's plenty of reasons. But the reason this one gets plenty of flack, more than plenty of flack, it gets overly berated, is that this was Leo's first flick after Titanic. And of course, Titanic was a monster. It was a hit. It was like the hugest hit in Cinemaland history, not called Star Wars. It was amazing box office results without any superheroes in spandex or even any money shots from the porn industry. Titanic was just, it did have some titties in it. They were nice. But it was just a huge success, just huge. And what does Leo go and do but follow it up with a little-known movie called The Beach? And of course, The Beach made $0 at the box office. It did nothing. I don't care about box office success. I'm not a producer. I don't have a hat in it. I didn't care about its success. I cared that I liked this movie a lot. And more than anything, more than me simply liking this movie made me want to write. Now, anyone out there that you can do any artistic endeavor you want. I don't care if you're a painter, if you're a musician, writer, of anything. Any artistic endeavor that you go forth in. Anything that inspires you to do your art, it's going to hold a special place for you. Because you know that for me, like a movie, I know that every time I catch this movie on TV or I pop it in a DVD player specifically to be inspired, it's going to work. That once I'm done watching it, and usually not even done, usually a quarter of the way into the movie, I've got my notepad out and I'm doing some writing down. That's why this holds such a special place for me. Because, like most wannabe writers out there, I don't write like I should. I try to every day, but it doesn't always happen. And when it does happen, it's usually just crap. And I'm sure a lot of you feel my pain, or you're just honest douchebags. But assuming you're not, if you need a piece of art to inspire you to possibly do some writing, check out the flick The Beach. It's so good. Now, with any novel turned movie, there's going to be some differences. For one, and if you haven't watched the movie, don't. Just read the book. It's really good. It's a nice little blend of video games, and it's like the Polynooks, Fight Club's ideas. It's about a grown child. But in Fight Club, the main character was like in his early 30s, I believe. Now, both these novels were written at the same time, Fight Club and The Beach, that is. But the main character here in The Beach, Richard, is in his young 20s. He's still a traveling man. It's like the main character from The Alchemist. It's a young man that he's got a hankering to travel. He just wants to get out and he wants to see the world. And so that's what he does. I think he's got rich parents. It kind of hints at it. It never out and out says it. But he's English. And aren't all the English rich? I know that's a farce. I know that's not true. But it's kind of our stupid American predisposition. We think of the English as rich, banking, three-piece suit, funny-talking, limey fucks. And Richard fits the bill. I love the character Richard. There's cursing. There's lots of drug use. This is a book that if you are a younger person looking for a book to read, this is going to do it for you. It's kind of an action-adventure story. Hell, no, not really action. It's an adventure story of a young man going out and traveling and seeing the world. And really, it's about seeing Southeast Asia. That apparently became the hot spot for traveling in the mid-90s, maybe early 90s when he was writing this. Because it's important, a distinction here. Richard, the main character of the book, is a traveler. He's not a tourist. He's not going on tour. He's not one of these idiots sitting on a beach, staying at a resort. He is a traveler. He is going to see the world. He's going to the untamed parts of the world. The distinction they make between being a tourist, besides it's a fucking tourist, you fucking tourist. The difference between being a fucking tourist and a traveler, it's kind of like the keeping up with the Joneses of travel. You got to keep going farther and farther out to more and more remote places. The more dangerous, the better, in fact. These are people that, in the hierarchy, the more dangerous the place, the better. The more remote, the better. So this takes us to Southeast Asia, and I think it's out in the Philippines, I believe. Sure, let's go with that. And that's the basic plot of the movie as well. There's a couple small differences, like they do start out on the Kobach Road. But those of you who have seen and read it, you both know that in the beginning of the flick, there's a great scene where Leo meets up with some of the locals in a tavern and takes a shot at Cobra's blood. It looks fucking horrible, and his reaction's horrible, but it's kind of one of those things, you're a man, you can't let these other men make fun of you, so fuck it. He takes that shot of Cobra's blood. Doesn't happen in the book. Beautiful scene in the movie, doesn't happen in the book. But he does run into Daffy. Daffy is a crazy fuck from the island known as the beach, who is just out of his mind bonkers, who happens to be staying in the same hotel as our main character, Richard. And, like any crazy person who meets someone he likes, he doesn't try to fuck him, he gets him stoned. Basically crawls through the ceiling. Not really, there's like netting separating the two rooms. Whatever, he tears his way into the room and gets Richard stoned. Richard knows this guy's crazy, but, he's smoking dope with him, so, hey, they kind of become buddies. Now, at the same time, Richard meets up with this French couple, Etienne and Francois. And while he's out with Francois and Etienne, he comes back to his hotel room and finds out that Daffy's dead. Daffy has slit his wrist in the night and split him good, too. He's got blood all over everything. He's basically repainted the walls red. But he left Richard a map on how to get from where he is right now to an island labeled the beach. And of course, that's the entire journey of the book. It's an adventure story of Richard and this French couple who he befriends, Etienne and Francois. I hate saying French names. Ignore me. It's the story of them three going together and of traveling to the beach. And they follow this map that's left by, his name's Daffy, but a lot of times Richard just refers to him as Mr. Duck. Mr. Duck, the map he left. Now on their travels, it takes them you got your legs of the journey. And part of the leg of the journey is just getting there. They travel by bus. There's no subways down there in this poor part of the world. They take bus. And this is where some of Richard's childishness comes to show. While he's going to sleep on the bus, it's how he falls asleep at night. He lays there with his arms crossed upon his chest, imagining he's an astronaut, shooting off into space, on a great travel. I mean, he is on a great travel, but it shows that he's a grown kid. He's not a man yet. He's just a grown boy. And he just sits there and he imagines taking off for other worlds. And that's how he falls asleep at night. There's other things that creep in. For instance, while I'm on the subject, right above his ceiling, he remembers in his bedroom, he had the glow-in-the-dark stars positioned. So when he went to sleep at night, it helped him on his travels to space. He could look up and see the stars he was traveling towards. Now, when they get most of the way, at least the mainland part of the travel out of the way, they run into a couple stoner kids from America named Zeph and Sammy. About called the dude Sandy. But Zeph and Sammy are never serious. They're some jokers. I mean, they act like they're Bill and Ted. They like the preconception of the stupid American. They don't want to disappoint anyone. They want everyone to believe that they are the dumbest Americans you're ever going to encounter anywhere, so they act like the characters from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. That's the personas they take on. But really, they're Harvard graduate students. They're around the same age as Rich, and also just they're young men. They're restless. They're traveling the world. But they're stoners. But they're always playing around, like I said. Like, one of my favorite lines is when, and one of them, they're indispensable as characters, but one of them says to Etienne, "There were no clouds where I grew up." And Etienne feels sorry for him. And this is where it kind of pisses Francois off, because she sees that Richard likes the two. Richard's kind of becomes buddies with Zeph and Sammy. I mean, they're always getting him stoned, and they're telling him about Kentucky Fried Rats. That's how they view the beach. They've heard the legend of the perfect beach that, of course, Richard and Francois and Etienne are carrying a map to get to. They've heard its story, and they call it the Kentucky Fried Rat, or Mouse, or something. Whichever one, it doesn't matter. It's an urban myth about a friend of a friend of a friend went to KFC, and they bit into what they thought was chicken, but it turned out to be a rat. That's the way the beach is. You always meet the friend of a friend of a friend of someone who's been there, or met one of the travelers who have been there, but you never meet one itself. You never hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And it's fun when they tell this story, because they're talking to the horse themselves. Well, not someone that's been there, but someone that's holding, I think of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They've got the golden ticket, but they're not in fun song and dance type of way. I love that song. I've got a golden ticket. There's none of that in the book. But of... My friends tell me I say but of way too much. I like it. It's a good transitioning thing. Anyway, they leave Zeph and Sammy, and Francois gets kind of... Francois, it's why we need our women around. Whenever the guys are just kind of don't know what to do, the women can make up their minds and just kind of be bitchy about it. Like even at the beginning, when Rich and Etienne are looking at the map, Francois just looks at them while they're still deciding what to do with it. She just looks at him and goes, "When are we going?" And then their minds are made up. "We're going to the beach. I guess we're going now." And she's short with Zeph and Sammy. She gets them the fuck away from them. She's like, "Look, the map is for the three of us. This beach is for the three of us." But Richard knows he's leaving them. He's just going with Francois and Etienne. But what does Richard do? He makes the note that I left them a map as well. They being Zeph and Sammy. He leaves them a crudely drawn map. The one he got from Mr. Duck, Daffy, was perfectly drawn. He could definitely see the route to take from that hotel where Daffy committed suicide on how to get all the way to the beach. Richard copies it down real quick in crayon and leaves it on Zeph and Sammy's door, much in the same way the map was left for him. He wanted to share the news, but really, he was afraid that they were going to die on the beach. So he needed someone to come to his rescue. Kind of, again, that childlike thing. I can't just go do this on my own. I need that safety net. And for him, that safety net is a couple of stoners from America named Zeph and Sammy. So he leaves it. And one of my favorite things about Richard, you can't do this anymore. He's a smoker. Richard is always smoking in this book. Almost always. Either finishing a cigarette, starting a cigarette, or smoking. I don't remember that from the movie. I haven't watched it in a while. I need to rewatch it. I remember him smoking dope, but I don't remember cigarettes. But the novels, Richard, the fuck does he do when he's getting ready to leave for the beach, the perfect beach? He goes to breakfast. He tells the kid, "No pancakes today. I need 400 cigarettes." Fucking A-right. I'm going to the perfect beach. I may not be back in a while. He orders 2 full cartons to take with him on his journey. I like this dude. I could travel with him. The closest they can get to their beach, their island, is a kind of... The beach itself is a national park, but there's also another national park where boats are allowed. The island of the beach, no one's allowed to go there. No one knows why. It's just the Filipino government. No one can go there. You're not allowed. But they can go to an island over. So they arrange for a boat to take them to that other island. And it's here at this island where it's very good writing by Mr. Garland here. It's so beautiful. The real Richard is left behind in the grove on that island smoking a cigarette. A different Richard comes out and swims with Francois and Etienne across the sea to their island. It's beautiful. It's not him the rest of the story. The real him could never do the things on the island that Richard ends up doing. The real Richard was left behind. The beach's Richard That's who takes place for the rest of this book. Like I said, it's well crafted, beautifully done by Mr. Garland, and I applaud him. It's a good place as any, guys. We need to break for a quick word from our sponsor. Be back. This ain't quite the first half of the book, but it's a thing about a journey. Half the thing about going on a vacation, just going there, is the journey to get there. And I'm kind of tired of talking for a minute, so hey, we'll take a quick bake. A quick bake. I'm not Seth Sammy. And I don't have any pot. I can't do that. So anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Be right back, guys. Today's book report is brought to you by exercise. You know, that thing you've done since grammar school. Used to be called PE class, and now that you're an adult, to get out and to play around, to move, to do anything, it's just called exercise. And why are we sponsored by such a great product as exercise? Because diets don't work. Sure, you can always eat less than you're used to taking in. It'll help you even lose some weight. But guess what? Nothing burns calories but exercise. So, if you're tired of complaining about being overweight, don't just change your diet. Don't just change the channel. Actually change your physical activity and do something. Exercise, folks. The only thing proven to take those pounds off and keep them off. Exercise. Try it today. Alright, guys. So, when Rich, Francois, and Etienne get to the island, well, I mean, it's hard. They have to swim for a couple miles. And a couple miles isn't far when you think of it as like mainland walking, biking, driving a car especially. On a mainland, a couple miles is not that far, but when you're in an open ocean and just swimming up and down, I know the waves ain't, well, yeah, actually, I don't know. Waves are pretty fucking bad. And you just swim for a couple miles. You wore the fuck out. Oh, excuse me. But anyway, they swim, they make it, they're tired. They climb up a plateau, they're fucking tired. But on top of the plateau, they come to this field of pot. It's just nothing but pot. And Etienne's all happy and like, woohoo, dope. Why not? And Rich knows these plants, they're kind of lined up, kind of in rows. Notices this is no wild dope. And in the distance, he sees a gunman. I mean, it's far in the distance. He slams Etienne into the ground. They crawl off. They barely escape notice of these guards, these little Thai people. Maybe I said Philippines earlier. Pretty sure this is in Thailand. Jesus, I need notes. Anyway, they're tired, and they come to this waterfall, and they don't know what to do. It doesn't look like there's any way down past the waterfall. And so Rich is just like, fuck it. He just jumps. And Etienne and Francois are worried. They don't know if he's coming up. He comes up and then woo! So they jump off and they come down with him. And here's where they meet their first of the beachgoers. They've made it. They are at the beach. But Rich, like I said, he's tired. At the sight of finally meeting somebody at his destination, he's made it. He just faints and hits his head. Whack. He's down and he's out. Then he starts running a fever. He has these weird dreams, but are they dreams? It's of Duck's with him. Mr. Daffy Duck, of course. Francois's there. He kisses her. And that's where it kind of brings him up. Like, oh, shit. She kissed Francois. Now, in the movie, it's not really a big deal. He fucks Francois, but you got to think. In the movie, it's Leonardo DiCaprio. If he's in a film, there's an opposing chick, he's going to fuck her. Doesn't happen in the book, and it feels better. Because even when watching the movie, it's like, aw, it's Etienne's girl. But no, it doesn't happen in the book. If I ruined it for somebody, get the fuck over it. It's almost 20 years old. Anyway, so he wakes up, and he meets the other leaders. And, of course, the first other leader he meets is Bugs. He knows of Daffy. Now he's met Bugs. But then the leader is Sal. And she's depicted kind of weird. Sal's kind of like Buddha. In the way that she's kind of a chubby chick. And she wears all these stupid bracelets that girls wear now and bones and shit, I think. Probably not. I'm probably making that part up. But she's got the bracelets. She's kind of chubby, and she's American. It's kind of funny. Englishman writes an American. They're two dumb stoner kids, and the other one's a fat blonde at the beach trying to take charge. It works into our stereotypes. Fuck you, limey bastards, for your stereotypes, but hey, these are at least funny. But Rich gets interviewed by Sal, and he is very disappointed to find out that this is just a beach resort. Now, it is a beach resort for those who don't like beach resorts, but that's all that this is. Now, Rich is amazed at the technology. They've built freshwater canals, and they have permanent dwellings. They have their own shitter over off the side of the creek, so no one goes into the fresh water. And this is another one of those things that I was so amazed at reading, is that Richard does not understand how Easterners clean off their asses after shitting without toilet paper. You go into a bathroom over there, there's a pitcher of water, and Richard doesn't know how to use it. He had an Eastern friend once who liked toilet paper, but when he traveled with him in the East, he would hide his toilet paper because he could not let his people see him using the damn Westerners' toilet paper. He had to use the pitcher of water. He didn't want to. He wanted to use our toilet paper, but he was ashamed to do it in front of his countrymen. Richard could never ask him what the pitcher of water was for. Did they use their hand and wash it off? The water doesn't look shitty. What's going on here? He was too embarrassed to ask, and I really don't want to know. I'll keep being a stupid American and wiping my ass with some nice, soft toilet paper. Anyway, some good writing there, too. It's hard to make good writing about wiping your ass, but hey, props to Mr. Garland. Pulled it off. And Richard's fun. He's a fun character, man. Like anyone that's a Quentin Tarantino fan, I keep taking it back to movies. I'm sorry, this is about books. But anyway, the song Street Life. And I only bring up Quentin because I know the song Street Life from the movie Jackie Brown. Street Life. I don't know, I shouldn't sing. It's terrible. But as Richard's walking around the island, he keeps singing Beach Life. Again, another little fun thing Mr. Garland threw in there. I thank him for it. It worked beautifully. But Richard is amazed how fast they just assimilate into this community of beach resort people. Because that's all they are. It's kind of disappointing, but just a beach resort. But they assimilate quick. Like, there's even jobs here. You can't just be at the beach and get stoned all day. There's jobs. There's the garden detail, there's the cooking staff, and then there's the fishing folk. Now, and everyone's envious because the more people that come, the more fish they obviously need, so all three newcomers are assigned to be fishers. And, of course, Richard's best buddy, it's another Englishman. It's this kid named Keaty. Him and Rich are about the same age, only Keaty's a black dude. But they become friends because Keaty has a Game Boy, and Richard misses playing video games. So the two bond over, I don't even remember what they played. They bond over Game Boy games. All those were pretty shitty in my experience, but these two characters like them. And it more of, it kind of grounds them, makes them real. That's what is nice when you get those details that make characters real. And imagine these two English kids on an island off the coast of Thailand playing a Game Boy. I can see that. It feels real to me. Now, besides the just regular old life, they have a game at night. Before they go to sleep, or while trying to fall asleep, you call out someone's name. Good night, Joe. And then Joe, upon hearing his name, has to say good night, Francois. Then Francois would have to say good night, Sal. And Sal would have to say good night, Rich. And by the time it comes to you, you have to remember who's been said goodnight to and who hasn't. Excuse me, sorry. Damn cigarettes. Pulling at Richard here. But, it's nice. Again, it's just one of those details that grounds you into the life there. You know what they do during the day? They go to their jobs. They come home. They eat their food. They get stoned. They go swimming. Then they go to sleep with the sleep game. It's nice. Now, it's not a total self-sustaining community. They have to make rice runs. They need rice. So they have to go to the mainland to get rice from time to time. And Rich gets to go with Jed. Now, Jed's kind of the outsider on the island. He's the first one that they encountered. He's the one they encountered at the waterfall. And Jed's he's a loner dude. He's never really there at night. At dinner, he's eating by himself because he always shows up after everyone else is eating. So Jed's kind of interesting character, but he's always off in the shadows. And he's also the one that always goes on a rice run, but he needs help. Rich is in... Jesus. Rich likes Jed. He likes the idea of who this loner is, so he volunteers to go with him, if nothing else, just to get to know him. Now, and as soon as they get to the mainland, the first people they encounter, I forget exactly what happened. Books fade quick into memory. But Jed just goes, fucking freaks. He hates these people on the mainland, and Rich seems why. He's trying to be happy about being on the mainland, but he knows there's nothing here for them, only the job. And as he's walking around, at first, like I said, he was happy to be back in civilization. He just wants to get away from it. So as he's walking away, he encounters a couple actually, just this couple on the beach they're passed out from opiates. He doesn't know what, but they're knocked. And the chick's passed out in a chair and the dude's dead. He's OD'd. He's out for the count. And for some reason, while Rich is looking down at the lady, he doesn't want her to feel the pain of having to see that this man died. He would rather her think he just ran off. So Rich hides her body. He doesn't know why, but it's just to save some woman some pain. He's a nice guy. He tells Jed, of course, and Jed doesn't get it. That was a waste of your time. You shouldn't have done that. And Rich goes, I didn't expect you to get it. I wanted to do something nice. Again, it's one of the things that made me like Rich more. Goes out of his way, does something he doesn't have to do to help save a total stranger some pain. Makes a character very likable. Can all learn something like Rich. Need to be something like this chain-smoking English bastard. So anyway, while on the island, Jed overhears Zeph and Sammy showing their map to some Germans. And he tells Rich about this. And Rich, of course, slaps his palm to his forehead. Just, fuck. But Jed says, don't worry about it. I'll handle it. All right. One less thing to worry about, and Rich believes Jed. He believes that Jed will take care of it. So they get back to the beach life, and it starts to rain. And they let him know it rains sometimes here. It pours, and it's hard to fish in the rain. It makes sense to me. I wouldn't know it. I can't fish. Hate fishing. But while waiting on the rain to pass, Rich gets bored, so he decides to do some spear fishing anyway. And he gets him a baby shark. Yeah! Gets some baby shark, and he brings it back. He gets to feed the encampment. Of course, everybody's happy except for Sal. Sal's kind of a downer and a one-upper. One-upper's the way it's always put in the book. No matter what you do, Sal has to have done something better. Like later on, Rich goes off and finds a papaya grove. He tells the people on gardening detail about it, and he kind of forgets about it. Sal takes credit for it. Oh, and it pisses Richard off. Pisses him off bad. It comes back to that. I mean, first off, Rich gets reassigned. He gets reassigned to be with Jed. And it turns out Jed is his job, like the fishers, the gardeners, the carpenters, the cooks. Jed is a lookout. And the reason that Rich was reassigned to work with Jed's been watching Zeph, Sammy, and the Germans. They're all an island over, trying to figure out how to make it to the beach. Now, Rich doesn't know what they'll have to do if they make it over, but him and Jed have to watch them. They have to make sure they don't make it over. Now, while Rich got moved to lookout, Keaty got moved to his position as a fisherman. But poor Keaty, poor little kid, he accidentally feeds the camp it was like dead octopus. Is that what it was? Squid. It was dead squid. I didn't know you couldn't serve shit that's been dead for a while. Apparently not, because it gives most everyone in the camp food poisoning. So you know food poisoning. You shit and you puke. And of course, who would need the help of Richard while shitting and puking all over themselves? But, Sal. Not Sal. Sal's the chick. Bugs. Bugs needs help. He's standing there shitting himself. Help! Rich just walks right past him and just lets Bugs shit all over the floor. It's right about this point that everyone at the camp starts seeing something odd in Richard. He's not that likable young man anymore. He's a kid who'll just let someone shit all over the floor. It was fun. Soon after this, more disaster strikes the camp, because you can't have a book without disaster striking. Right before Richard and his crew showed up, Jed was the only one to show up before them. Before that, 3 Swedes had showed up. Before that, I'm sorry, I'm doing everything backwards here. Turns out this beach encampment was founded by Sal, Bugs, and Daffy. Old Mr. Duck. 3 of them founded this place, and they wanted others to come. So they would go, they'd find other travelers they liked, bring them back. But it got to a point where there was plenty of people, they didn't want to spread the word anymore. These 3 Swedes showed up. Out of nowhere. They invited them in. Then Jed showed up, and that's when Daffy lost his shit. Like, there's too many people here. There's too many. Can't keep doing this. And that's when Daffy freaked out, went crazy, and just left. He fled the entire beach community. Never to return. And he didn't. And then... And also, that's why Jed's the outsider. I'm trying to get ahead of myself again. I apologize. Jed's the outsider because Daffy made him feel an outsider. So Jed never really felt comfortable. He would rather be the lookout to keep others, like himself, from ever showing up again. It doesn't really explain how being the lookout he missed Francois, Etienne, and Richard coming in. But the camp is at like a critical mass. They can't have any more people showing up. So one of the Swedes, they get bit by a shark. Wait a minute. Yeah, one's dying of a shark bite. A second one was killed by the same shark, and the third one's just fucking gone bonkers nuts. He's watched basically his 2 brothers die. I don't even know if he knows. He's just catatonic. He's sitting there nutso. His one brother's dying of a shark bite. His other brother's dead. Jed has to take care of the Swede that's dying. So Rich becomes the only one left to stand on lookout for Zeph and Sammy. And guess what? Zeph and Sammy and the Germans come across. Richard doesn't know what he's going to do. Turns out he don't have to do nothing. They get caught by the dope guards. Those guys up on the plateau, those ties with the machine guns guarding their dope fields. Those guys, they catch Zeph and Sammy and the Germans. And guess what? Richard gets to watch them just shoot the fuck out of them. Just full auto. Kill them. So Rich comes back to camp. Christo's nearly dead. Christo, I'm glad I took a note there. He was the Swede dying of a shark bite. So Rich starts talking to Bugs. Oh, yeah. And I'm lost in my notes here. Wait a second. Oh, Daffy. I said Bugs. That's where I confused myself. Daffy's been dead for months, but Richard, while up there on lookout position, he starts seeing Daffy everywhere he goes. He used to just dream about Daffy, but Richard's going fucking bonkers by the end of this book. He starts seeing Daffy, and even when he's awake, Daffy stays with him. He hunts with him. He steals dope from the dope guards with him. Daffy watches Zeph, Sammy, and the Germans get shot by the dope guards with him while Richard's awake. And so Rich takes off. He doesn't know what to do. So he comes back to camp. He finds Jed half asleep next to the half-alive Christo. So Richard just kills him. Just puts him out of his mercy. He knows the guy's dying anyway. You can just smell death all over him. He's thinking once he's dead, Jed will leave with him. He convinces Francois and Etienne to leave with him. But the night they were all going to leave is the night of the Tet celebration. And so they can slip away without anyone noticing, Richard decides to drug them all. He takes way too much dope. Way too much. And dopes the soup for the night celebration. So when everyone, except for Etienne, Francois, and Rich, eat this doped up soup, they flip out. Well, they just start tripping balls. That's a better way to put it. They are fucked up. And they're fucked up. It worked. Francois, Etienne, and Rich. Etienne and Francois accidentally got drunk, so Rich is having to get them to puke. He's shoving fingers down their mouths. Everyone's tripping like, whoa, they're puking. And the dope dealers show up with the lifeless bodies of Zeph, Sammy, and the Germans to show them, look, this is what happens when people come here. No more people come here. And then they hand off the map that everyone notices is done in Rich's handwriting. It's got the instructions. It's got his markings all over it. Rich is now caught red-handed by the entire camp that is now tripping balls. So what do? They don't want to be seen with this death in their perfect beach resort. They don't want to see these lifeless bodies. So all the beachgoers gather up knives, and it's fucked up, guys. They just cut the bodies to shit. They're just going to bury it. They're making it disappear, and then they turn to Richard. After they've cut the bodies up into small enough pieces that they can bury it, they're all covered in the blood from doing this. They turn on Rich. They turn on Rich with their knives, and they start to stab him and poke at him. They're not really doing much damage. They're just kind of slicing and poking here and there. It's kind of like the scene where Julius Caesar is killed in the fucking whatever the Senate floor is in Rome. It's like that. And Rich is Caesar. He just starts getting stabbed and shit. And finally, Rich doesn't know what to do until Daffy, the ghost of the man, screams out, "Run! Fucking A!" And so Rich runs out of there. Francois and Eddie fresh on his heels. Only the surviving Swede brother, he's left with the boat. They don't have a boat anymore. Excuse me. So they have to swim back across the sea to the other island. But they do it. And Richard has extra cigarettes stored there, so he's happy. He gets to smoke a cigarette in peace, and he finds his former self back in that grove. I actually don't remember if that part was written, or I assumed it was. But that's basically what happened. The other Rich went to the island, lived on the island, went fucking nuts with Daffy's ghost on that island, and then Richard left, and he came back to his senses. Goddamn, guys, this was a great fucking book. Can't recommend it highly enough. Plus, it's summer now. It's called The Beach. Fucking read it. It's really good. Even if you hated the movie, read this book. There's not enough books out there that are just... There's no words to put it. That's why we love our books. Because sometimes you can't put words to why they are so good. And maybe you got to be a younger dude. I'm in my early 30s now. I probably should have read this a decade ago when I first saw the flick. But I didn't. And I'm kind of glad I waited. Kind of got to freshen in my mind. And it didn't turn shitty like fucking The Great Gatsby when I finally read it and discovered it sucked. This book didn't do that. This book was a fine wine. And when I finally got to it, I was so damn glad I was reading it. And it was great. So like I said, if you've seen the flick, more power to you. I love it. I hope it inspires you to write just like it does me. But please go out. It's by Alex Garland. It's called The Beach. You should all read it, guys. You never know. You just might like it more than me.